Welcome to Living Fully. Each episode is a chance to talk about mental health in a way that's simple, honest, and helpful. We'll share stories, tips, and tools to help you feel supported and feel your best. I'm your host, Catherine Hertig. Depression. It's one of the most common mental health concerns, but the good news is it's very treatable. Today, we're talking about what depression actually feels like, when it's time to reach out for help, and what counseling for depression really looks like. I'm joined by psychologist Long Zhou to walk us through what support can look like and why reaching out sooner makes a difference. From October 6th to 12th, take the free depression screening quiz at areyoufeelingok.com. Okay, today I'm here with Long Zhou, a counselor with Calgary Counseling Center. Hi, Long. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Catherine. Yeah, glad to be here.
And you haven't been on the podcast before, so tell our listeners, who are you?
Yeah, my name is Long. I'm a registered psychologist, and I'm a staff here at CCC. I also did my residency here prior in 2023, and I've been staff for about a year.
Excellent. So we're talking about depression and what getting help for depression looks like. So very basic question, how would you describe what depression actually feels like day to day?
First of all, depression can manifest differently for everyone due to, its type, severity, and also a complex interplay of biological, emotional, psychological, and social factors.
Right.
But in general, people with depression often experience persistent feelings of sadness, loss of interest, or fatigue. So those are common symptoms. But also there's also ranges of other emotional, psychological, and physical symptoms. Yeah.
And when you say persistent, is that just a few days? Is it what's that time frame look like?
To be diagnosed with a major depressive disorder, which is the most severe and common type of depression, the persistent feeling of sadness need to last for at least 2 weeks time. Are
there some more maybe subtle signs of depression that people might overlook, brush off, not really think that they have to do with depression?
Some subtle signs would be, social withdrawal, changes in their sleep. Either they'll sleep a lot or sleep less. Their appetite can also be affected. Other things would be unexplained pains. There's other subtle signs, but those are the ones that I can think of right now, yeah.
And I guess you really have to look at the whole picture because one of those things on their own doesn't necessarily mean, I'm depressed. If my appetite changes. So you kind of got to look at everything going on, right?
Yeah, for sure. There's diagnostic manuals, right, to assess whether you qualify for the diagnostic criteria for depression.
Yeah. And how does depression, how would it affect my motivation, energy, ability to function, that kind of thing?
Depression can really sap people's, motivation, energy. So it's very common people feel less motivated to do things and also find things that normally enjoyable. And also because their sleep is also affected, that further affects their energy level.
For sure. Yeah. So if someone's experiencing these things, been feeling sad for a while, sleeping a lot more, kind of withdrawing from friends, when would it be time to reach out for help?
Okay. Like mentioned earlier, if the symptom lasts more than 2 weeks and it's not getting better, that means that, help is needed. If you can't do it, it's not improving on its own, or if you have tried. It's always good idea to reach out for support, to find out the underlying causes. The first step is visit your doctor and explain your symptoms to see if there's any underlying medical conditions that may contribute to the depression.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And when you're in counseling, we'll figure out what are some contributing factors, underlying issues, and also we're going to learn coping strategies to help the symptoms.
What would you say to someone who's unsure if what they're feeling is quote unquote serious enough to need counseling?
Counseling is not just for crisis, right? Even when you feel off, you're not like yourself, counseling is always there to support. It's actually recommended to reach out sooner than delaying, and because symptom can get worse over time. It's just like you're having a illness. You don't want to wait until symptom get a lot worse before you visit doctor.
Right.
As soon as so that early detection and intervention is always recommended.
In your work with clients, what have you found are some common thoughts or fears that might keep people from seeking support if they're struggling?
Some common barriers would be the social stigma, right? The fear of being stigmatized as being weak, right? Also, there's can be financial barriers as well.
Right.
Not everyone can afford counseling. That's why actually at our center, we're providing that sliding scale for people who have financial difficulties. Also, there are people think that they can tough it out. Or for some people, they don't know their help is available.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't know what counseling entails.
And so let's talk about what this help actually looks like. So what happens when someone starts counseling for depression? What kinds of things are covered? What kinds of tools are used? That kind of thing.
So at start, we usually have like initial assessment to understand, to explore what contribute to depression, right? The cause, the perpetuating factors, and after getting to know your history, your medical conditions, family history, then we'll come up with a treatment plan.
Okay.
That is tailored to your individual circumstances. Then in the first session, we'll come up with a goal for you to work towards.
Okay. In my own experience, because I've had counseling before, how specific does that goal need to be? Like, is the goal of I just want to feel better? Is that enough? Or do we need to dive a little deeper?
We want to be very specific, right? With the depression, people want to feel better, right?
Yeah.
Feel happier. But how can we operationalize that? And what does it look like, right? When you feel better, what we'll be doing differently? So we want to make sure the goal is very specific, measurable, and achievable.
Okay. So if a client doesn't know the goal beyond that feeling better, you're able to work with them to help flesh that out a bit?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, first find out, what depression looks like for you. For example, how your life, day-to-day functioning has been negatively impacted.
Okay.
And when you're not depressed, what does your day look like? And we try to, bring you back to that baseline functioning.
Yeah. And you had mentioned earlier, like coping skills. What kinds of skills are you helping clients build up and add to their toolbox?
It really depends on the therapeutic models that a counselor is practiced. Like for me, my main modality is cognitive behavior therapy. So we would use techniques such as behavioral activation.
What is that?
That is, when people feel depressed, they don't want to do things, right? The less they do, the more depressed they feel. So they got themselves into that vicious cycle. So behavioral activation is actually to break that cycle. So start to do more things. Do things that you find meaningful, you find enjoyable, and the more you do, the better you will feel, and you get that slow rolling.
And you mentioned counseling modalities. I'm aware of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Are there other modalities that are effective in helping with depression?
Oh, for sure. There's many, many modalities out there. For example, there's DBT, dialectic behavior therapy. There's ACT, stands for acceptance and commitment therapy. There's a brief solution focused therapy.
And so how does as a counselor, how do you go about which of these modalities is going to be right for each particular client?
That's why it's important to understand clients' history and also what has worked or hasn't worked for them before. And then we're going to create that treatment plan collaboratively. And we're going to check with the client whether you find that helpful or not. For example, if some strategies from CBT that clients find not very useful, then we may
pull from other
therapeutic models to try. So it's really individualized plan in the end.
I know. I think it's easy to kind of think it's a one size fits all. You come in, you get the same kind of therapy as the next person, but we are so different. So it's got to be kind of tailored.
For sure. That's why at CCC, we have many staffs and students, right? They practice various therapeutic models. And sometimes if we find we're struggling, we're not making any progress, we'll ask clients permission to make a video recording so we can present it to our team and have a consult. and come up with a more effective treatment plan for them.
Yeah, that's good to know. That could be really helpful. Like there's a whole team that can be helping.
Definitely.
Yeah. So if I've never been to counseling before, if I'm dealing with depression, what would you say to me in terms of the question of like, how does talking to a counselor help?
When you talk to a counselor, first of all, this is going to be a very safe, non-judgmental, and supportive environment for you to share your struggles, right? Your challenges. And the counselor can offer that guidance, help you to identify triggers and also learn helpful emotional regulation skills or coping strategies. It's not just the talk. We also try the skills that we learned or concept you find helpful so you can actually practice in real life to find if it's helpful. So there's usually a homework assigned at the end, homework that we created together that you're willing to give a try, see if that make a real difference in your day-to-day life.
Right. That's a big part of it, hey, because like it's not just a conversation in the room. It's practices that you have to build into your life.
For sure, because the time we spend together is really short, just 15 minutes, right? The hard work and effort is actually on you, on the client, to really give a try and see if that make differences. If not, then we'll come back and we'll revise, we'll try different strategies until we find the right one for you.
And this homework, what might be a few examples of homework that might be given to someone dealing with depression?
For example, we made activity scheduling so we can figure out typical day going to be like. What do you think might be helpful if you do that in a day? Things like what time you're going to get up, what are you going to eat, then what are you going to do afterwards to really try to get you become active. So we're going to schedule out the day so you can try that out, see if that's going to change how you feel and how you think about yourself.
Does that routine, kind of knowing what to expect, can that be helpful?
Yeah, for sure. As a human being, actually, we function best when there's a routine.
Yeah.
Right? And usually when we feel depressed, we're out of a routine and we just become almost like immobilized. That's why we want to get back to the routine and do the things that once actually worked for you.
And what role does the relationship with your counselor play? So a client coming in, that connection between them and the counselor, how does that help?
Actually, that therapeutic relationship, we call it the alliance, plays a huge role. Actually, studies have shown that therapeutic alliance, that relationship plays a bigger role than specific techniques. So
really?
Yes, yeah. Having that trust. And when clients feel heard, understood, seen, and safe, they'll be more open to share and more willing to try. Yeah, so that relationship is really fundamental.
So as a counselor, how do you build that relationship and that trust and that comfortableness for someone to be vulnerable with you like that?
Usually we'll explain to client, this is a safe and non-judgmental space, and also it's confidential. And we do it through active listening and really put ourselves into clients' situation and see from their perspective where they're struggling. So that active listening and perspective taking is the key to build that relationship.
Yeah. Could you give some examples of maybe some small changes people might start to notice once they've begun counseling?
Yeah. Some small changes is that we feel a little more motivated to do things, to reach out for support, and they may feel just a little more hopeful, which is very important because
that's huge, yeah.
Other things, maybe if they really work on building that routine and being more behaviorally active, let's say if they engage in some, exercise or even small movement, just, go out for a walk, and that can have a huge health implication.
Yeah.
They may have a better sleep at night, and that kind leads to other positive changes in life.
Yeah, how do those basic aspects of our health, like sleep and exercise and eating right, how does that impact depression?
Right, definitely can help very much with the depression because when we have a quality sleep, we feel less irritable. For some people, depression can show up as feel irritable and more anxious, right? But having a better sleep, that can help regulate anxiety and the mood, also improve our concentration and memory as well. And eating, same thing, if we eat balanced, nutritious meal, it gives us the energy and also makes us feel better when we eat well.
Yeah.
Right? Same with exercise. When we exercise, our body produce that natural feeling better chemical, the dopamine, the endorphins. So those are naturally painkiller and actually makes us improve our mood as well.
Like, would you say that that's where someone should start if they're feeling depressed, kind of go back to the basics and kind of assess like, how am I sleeping, you know, and making sure that's in check and making time for exercise and that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. That's actually during the first session when we do that initial assessment, understanding client situation. Those are the areas that we actually assess is how's your sleep quality, your eating, any physical exercises, activities, or their social life as well. So those basics, we want to make sure they're in check because they plays a huge role in terms of the emotion regulation.
In your experience working with clients struggling with depression, what are the things they typically feel the hardest things to overcome? Is it, you know, getting out and being social? Is it how they feel about changing how they feel about themselves? I mean, that's a really broad question, I know, but so what are some trends that you see?
Right. Usually people with depression, they have, negative thought patterns. So one of the things we'll do in counseling actually is to try to identify and also modify those negative that may perpetuate depression.
Okay.
Right? And try to think more positively, more healthily. Another thing would be sometimes that sense of hopelessness. That's a thing because when people are, let's say they're severely depressed, not only they have a sense of like low self-esteem, worthlessness, but also thoughts of self-harm and suicide. So I would say instilling that hope in clients is very important, knowing that depression is very normal. A lot of people experience that at some point of their life. Not only it's normal, but also it is treatable.
Yeah, it's temporary.
It's temporary.
Yeah, that was something huge that helped me is really hanging on to that perspective. Like this feeling, even if it doesn't seem that way right now, it is temporary and it will pass.
Yeah, usually a metaphor I use with my client is the weather, right? You know, sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's cloudy, but it's just like our emotion, it changes over time. Sometimes even within a day, you'll see the weather shift. Right.
Yeah.
But with the depression, it's actually a little different. But depression is different from sadness. Sadness is actually a very normal emotion, right? Depression is actually a clinical diagnosed as a mood disorder. So that actually needs medication or therapy intervention in order for you to overcome it.
Yeah.
Right. But that being said, it is treatable, right? Even we have a storm for, let's say it's snowing for 2 weeks or more, or even for 6 months, but eventually the sun will come out.
That's
right? We have a summertime. Yeah.
And I can imagine, you know, anyone coming in dealing with depression, they want to feel better immediately. So how do you go about working with clients when the progress kind of feels slow for them? You know, how do people stay hopeful and motivated in those moments?
Yeah, it's important to set a realistic expectation, knowing that improvement, that progress is not linear, right? It takes time. It's important to be patient and be consistent, really working on the things that you know will be helpful. Another thing earlier you mentioned about, I just don't feel like doing it. But if you know logically, if I get up, go out for a walk, reach out to friends, eat healthy, improve my sleep, things will get better, and have that belief and really practice it over time, you should see the improvement.
Yeah, it's a hard thing, that patience, but it's important to keep going. One last question, Long. What's just one thing that you wish everyone knew about getting help for depression?
So really, like I mentioned earlier, depression, it is normal. And it is treatable, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Like we all get to experience at some point of our life. So when you feel like you're off, and really reach out for help, and the earlier the better. If you have any medical conditions, as soon as you see the symptoms, you want to visit a doctor and prevent it from getting worse. Same thing with our mental health.
Yeah, for sure. We really need to start thinking of it that way. Thank you so much, Long.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
If you've been feeling low, tired, or just not like yourself, you're not alone. From October 6th to 12th, head to areyoufeelingok.com and take a free confidential quiz. It's a simple way to check in on your mental health. It only takes a few minutes and can help point you toward the support you need. Brought to you by Calgary Counselling Centre and Counselling Alberta. Tune in on October 10th for our next episode. We're re-releasing a conversation we had last year with Calgary Counselling Centre's Associate Director of Counselling, Sarah Rosenfeld. She talks about one of the key factors to overcoming depression, social connection. You'll also hear from one of Calgary Counselling Centre's clients and learn how counseling helped her manage her depression. Yeah, let's talk about group. What was the name of it, of the group?
Take Charge of Your Life.
And how did you find that? What was helpful?
Honestly, it was just being in that group environment and just being with a bunch of other people that were so vulnerable and willing to get down to the root of their issues and be able to discuss. And I really connected with a lot of other people that are kind of going through the same thing or have some of the same issues, like borderline personality disorder is also related to attachment issues.
You've been listening to Living Fully, a Calgary Counseling Centre podcast. Thank you for tuning in. This episode was produced by Nick Here, Louisa Campos, Manuel Montano, Jenna Forbes, and by me, Catherine Hertig. A special thanks to Long Zhou. To stay up to date on our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe. We're available in your favorite podcast app. Living Fully is a production of Calgary Counseling Centre and recorded in Calgary on Treaty 7 territory. Living Fully podcast is not a substitute or alternative for professional care or treatment. Calgary Counseling Centre and Counselling Alberta provide effective counselling to anyone in Alberta with no waitlist and no financial barriers. Find us online at calgarycounseling.com and counselingalberta.com. For help across Canada and the United States, call 211. If you are outside of Canada and the US, seek help from your general medical practitioner.